This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Lot of NBA and NHL on TV for tonight. Couple of games on ESPN and ABC in the NBA, and one over on TNT in the NHL. We're going to break down those national TV games, outline where you can find value in those, and then also break down other spots to find good betting value for the NBA and NHL tonight by talking to Tom Vecchio and picking his brain on tonight's slate of action. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here, as I mentioned, by Tom Vecchio. You can find him on Twitter at Tom_Vecchio1. Tom, we are into your kind of year because we've got the NBA and NHL cooking and NFL playoffs going on, which means prop menus are up earlier. So it is Tom's time to thrive. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, really interesting time in both sports. You know, we're over the halfway point or right at the halfway point. Teams are, kind of deciding if they're going to push for things. Some trade rumors going around, which obviously impacts player props, but we're in for a loaded slate of games tonight.
And we got about a month left until the NBA All-Star break. I know things get funky around that time. Are we in the danger zone yet for those? Or are we still pretty clear from that perspective?
I would say we're pretty clear from that until we get like substantial rumors where like Woj or Shams is tweeting that they're making headway on a trade or like something along those lines, whatever phrase they're going to use. That's where we start to get a little iffy. But until then, I think we're fine.
Okay, so we're good to proceed as usual. For now, we'll discuss ways to do so for tonight's slate with Tom here in a bit. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. We got our first look at the divisional round up yesterday, breaking down my thoughts on all 4 NFL divisional round games and where I saw value over at FanDuel Sportsbook to open the week. That is up on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, FanDuel TV Plus, and the FanDuel YouTube page as well. We'll be here tomorrow talking to Dr. Ed Feng to get his read on the 4 divisional round games too. JJ Zacharyson with us Friday to talk some player props, all right here in the same podcast feed. So make sure you're subscribed. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or over on Spotify. Also, if you want some PGA betting thoughts, we gave those on the Heat Check yesterday with myself and Brandon Gadula, breaking down our thoughts for the American Express, talk some outrights, talk some top 10s, top 20s, etc. We'll also talking some DFS for the American Express. So if you want to get some golf insights, head over there by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, where you can also find Tom's Daily ISO every weekday for the NBA. When it comes to the NFL playoffs, you've got to win one game at a time. But when you bet the NFL playoffs on FanDuel, one game can mean a lot of wins. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, has all your favorite bets, like the money line and the spread. And there's all sorts of prop bets, like quarterback passing yards or who will score the first touchdown. Plus, every day there's an NFL playoff game. FanDuel is giving all customers a no-sweat same-game parlay. That means when you combine all your bets for a chance at a bigger payday, you'll get bonus bets back, even if your SGP doesn't win. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Virginia, and Vermont. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700. Visit ksgamblinghealth.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit MD Gambling Health in Oregon, Maryland. Call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming, or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia. Let's turn our focus to begin things off, Tom, with the NBA tonight, where there are a couple of national TV games. We got the Bucks and Cavs on ESPN, Mavs and Lakers on ABC later on. So starting with those two games, any bets you like for those for tonight?
Start off with the Cavs and the Bucks. Jared Allen for the Cavs over 11.5 rebounds. It's sitting at -128. This is very clearly a matchup thing, and in terms of what the Cavs need to do in order to A, keep this close, or B, win the game. And the Cavs are still without Evan Mobley, their starting center, which is obviously a huge thing. So immediately they're at a size disadvantage. So with Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the other side, this is very clearly at a size disadvantage. So that means Dean Wade has been their starting power forward. Georges Niang is coming off the bench, and Tristan Thompson. So it's not a great matchup. So Jared Allen, we look back at his game log, 12, 14, 16, 20 plus rebounds in some of these recent games. He had a 24 and 23 game. I think it was 24-23 a little while ago. So Allen has to do his part in order for the Cavs to keep that close. That means a lot of rebounding from him, simply because if they get out rebounded, they lose this game 9.5 times out of 10. So he's been so good at it, and he has to play this role tonight because Brook Lopez and Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis and even Chris Middleton, they're all really good at this. That's what makes the Bucks the Bucks. They rebound, and they don't give other teams that many second chances, I should say.
Allen right now, as you mentioned, 11.5 rebounds, -128 at FanDuel Sportsbook. You mentioned the huge totals for Allen. Do you consider laddering this? Like, do you consider all markets on Allen? I know that, even 14 plus rebounds is only +175. So it's not like you're getting a massive price discount by going even a bit higher. But is he the kind of guy where you consider alt markets, or do you think that the baseline one is the best way to go here?
The baseline is the best one to go for this game. Alt markets are great when he's playing when they're playing terrible teams. Like,
sure,
we're looking at 16 rebounds against San Antonio, and 19 rebounds, and what is this, 23 against Dallas. So like these bad rebounding teams, that's where he excels. So normally you could look to Allen against Detroit, against Washington, against Indiana. Not tonight, just because the matchup isn't there. It's like it's a tough matchup to begin with, but this has to be his role. So if the next game they play Washington, and you want to see him go for 16, like, that's not a bad spot.
So he won't get greedy. We'll go Jared Allen over 11.5 rebounds, -128. Anything else across this game for you, Tom?
Yeah, that would be Chris Middleton under 16.5 points. It's -122. He's been good for the Bucks this year, but he's just been too up and down for me to feel comfortable with an over, where he's playing relatively consistent minutes, but his point totals are ranging from 20. They're down at 4. He's at 11. He's at 16. He's up at 20. He's back down to 4. Like, they're all over the place, simply due to the fact that he's not the number 1 or number 2 usage player in the offense. It's going to be Antetokounmpo. It's going to be Damian Lillard. And then you have a cast of characters that are knocking down some shots. And if it's just not Middleton's night, there's no way we can trust him to consistently reach 17 points.
And the problem here is it's not an efficiency thing, it's a usage thing. Because if it were an efficiency thing, like he's clanking shots, you could consider parlaying that with the Jared Allen rebound prop, because a Mr. Middleton could lead to a rebound for Allen. But it sounds like this is more so just because they've got other guys taking a lot of shots. It's not because you're fading Middleton's efficiency. It's because the shot volume is not there, and thus there's not a lot of correlation between those two recommendations.
Right. If he gets hot, like, he can get there, and like I said, he can have 20 points if he gets it, like he gets the hot hand that night, but it's not a consistent thing.
Okay, so Jared Allen over 11.5 rebounds, -128. Chris Middleton under 16.5 points, -122. Other game is Mavs versus Lakers, and for that game right now, Lakers 3.5-point favorites. Total in this game, not bad, 244. What you seen in this one, Tom?
That would be Anthony Davis over 40.5 points plus rebounds. Just points and rebounds, it's -120. High over under, both teams in top 11 in the league of an offensive pace. Right now, Luka is listed as questionable. Luka hasn't played in 3 straight games yet. His props are listed. Kyrie Irving's been on fire as of late. His props aren't listed, and he's fully healthy. So that's something I'm keeping note of as well. I mentioned that for DFS today. But Davis over 40.5 points plus rebounds. The Lakers, they're all over the place, up and down. They're winning games. They're losing games. No level of consistency for them, except for Anthony Davis, who routinely goes for a double-double. He could easily have 30, 35 points alone. I love the fact that a player can get close to his prop based on his offensive usage, and waking up tomorrow morning and seeing Anthony Davis with 35 points, I don't think would shock anyone that watches the NBA. So to have him add in his normal 8, 10, 12 rebounds, also very realistic for him. So 40.5 points and rebounds. It's minus 120. I think it's fine at that point.
Now, talking about the injury questions for the Mavs, would players being ruled out benefit Davis in this market? Would it be neutral? How would you view things if we get injury news later on the Mavs side of things here?
Well, if Luka's ruled in, it just makes a higher scoring game environment overall.
Sure.
The problem is for the Lakers is like LeBron doesn't play the other night against Utah and they still lose. Yeah. So like their team is they just don't have it together as a team. So they're constantly getting into these higher scoring games just because they're a mess kind of.
Okay.
So, and that's fine for Davis just because he has to do a whole lot, even for them just to maintain like a 500 record. So it really doesn't matter for the Lakers side of things. If Luka plays, we're going to see like a 250 total final score.
Okay. So Davis is at 40.5 rebounds plus or points plus rebounds right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Over is minus 120, which is where Tom is going there. Now we have 8 other NBA games for tonight, Tom. Where else is seeing value for tonight at FanDuel Sportsbook?
A lot of options tonight. A lot of good options tonight. I like the Magic +4. The Hawks are one of the worst teams against the spread this year. The Magic are one of the best. The Magic are playing really solid basketball this year, despite some scoring potential from the Hawks. As we see all the time, they are terrible on defense. They get into these insane games, and while Trae Young, looks great, there's a lot of turmoil within the team, and they just don't have it together. They're likely trading DeJounte Murray at the trade deadline, maybe to the Lakers potentially. That's the rumor right now, and they're just a mess internally. Like it just is what it is. And the Magic are solid. They're playing solid ball. They have a lot of options on offense, even though Franz Wagner is not going to be playing tonight. Paulo Banchero has been carrying the load. He's been doing a great job. And adding Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, they have a very well-rounded team. And that's why they're one of the best when it comes to against the spread this year. They just consistently get it done. And it's no one superstar, even though Paulo Banchero is trending in that direction. They just have a lot of really solid players that can get it done in any matchup.
The +4 right now for the Magic is minus 112. You kind of alluded to this, but what do you think is the reason that bookmakers have been a bit slow to catch on to the Magic? Because if you're overperforming against the spread, that could mean that eventually the books will catch up. And it sounds like your read is that they have not done so yet. So why do you think the, receptiveness to the Magic has been a bit delayed so far this year?
That's a good question. I mean, if you see it like right here, the Hawks are terrible against the spread. Like this is not a 10, 28-1, and the Magic are 26-14, like very different teams when it comes to against the spread. I think it's more of like partially due to the Hawks. I don't know. And I said this before, like, I don't know why the Hawks continue to get like this favorability where to me, this game should be a 1-point spread game, maybe 1.5.
Sure.
The Hawks are the home team, but they're like bordering on not even making the playoffs or not even making, I should say, the play-in, not the playoffs, but the play-in. I don't know why. I wish I had that answer, but if you just consistently look at the Magic, they are a good team, like I said, that plays well, plays solid ball. They don't have a superstar, so it's not like one player needs to have the ball every night. They have this well-rounded team where Paulo Banchero has a big night, even though Franz Wagner is not playing when he has a big night. It's there. Like everyone can do their part, so it's not just hinging upon one player having a massive game in order for them to win.
Yeah. Okay. So Tom is on the Magic +4 at minus 112. Anthony Davis over 40.5 points plus rebounds minus 120. Chris Middleton under 16.5 points minus 122. And then Jared Allen over 11.5 rebounds minus 128. Let's talk now about some NHL. We got a TNT game coming for tonight that is between the Blackhawks and the Sabres. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, the Sabres, pretty heavy favorites. I believe no Bedard for this game for the Blackhawks, which might influence that number. Sabres minus 285. Total is very low, 5.5. Over is minus 144. Beginning with this game, Tom, any value stand out to you here?
The Blackhawks are in a tough spot. As you mentioned, Bedard is out. He has a broken jaw. He had surgery. He's going to be out for another 5 or 6 weeks at this point, since he's already been out for a few weeks. The Blackhawks are on the second night of a back-to-back. With travel, it's really not looking like a good spot. There's basically no reason that the Sabres shouldn't be winning this game. The money line, there's no value there. The three-way money line, there's no value there. If you wanted to take a shot on the Sabres puck line, that is fine theoretically based on the money line being so high. You're expecting them to win. You're expecting them to win by multiple goals. If they don't cover by multiple goals, something went wrong for them. So that would be the only spot I would go. I still don't love a puck line bet every now and because so much needs to go right. So I prefer going to, I would say their two best players, which are Tage Thompson for a goal at plus 150. I think that number is too high based on A, the matchup, and B, his role. Tage Thompson is their best goal scorer. He doesn't have the most goals leading for the team. He doesn't lead the team just because he's missed some time this year. He's missed 10 or 12 games. But he is their best goal scorer. And he's on the center on the first forward line, first power play. Chicago is terrible on defense no matter what metric you look at. It's the season, the month, the last 2 weeks. Their goals against per 60 minutes in 5v5 situations, their total shot attempts allowed, high danger shots allowed. They're always in the bottom 5 or bottom 10 of the league. They're just bad. Tage Thompson, great goal scorers coming off 2 back-to-back years with 40-plus goals. He's their number one option. It should be as straightforward as a game for the Sabres as it possibly is. So Tage Thompson goal would be number one. And then Rasmus Dahlin, their top defender, over 2.5 shots. It is at minus 148, which might be a little bit much for some people. I still think that this is a very viable line based on the matchup. Like I said, Chicago's in the bottom 5, bottom 7 of the league over the last month, 2 weeks, whatever it is for Corsi against, which are total shot attempts allowed per 60 minutes in 5v5 situations. So Dahlin, the top defender on their first defensive line and the first power play unit, has always been an offensive first defenseman. And he is constantly firing the puck. I love the fact that he's coming off a game with no shots on goal. This is like, okay, let's not mess around. Chicago on a back-to-back. We need to come away with this win if we want to have a shot at the wild card. Let's just get our best players the puck and we'll move on from there.
The Dahlin shot prop right now, over 2.5 is minus 148. Is the matchup a reason to avoid alt markets? Like, do you think they could handle this game easily enough where you're not even looking towards alt markets in concern that these guys aren't going to get like max ice time in this game?
No, I mean, this is the kind of matchup where Dahlin can go for 4 or 5 shots. If you look back at his game, like he goes for 4 or 5 shots in any matchup.
Right.
So like, this is like and the fact that the Sabres have fallen behind in the standings, this is like a pedal to the floor type of game where like they have to win by 3 goals. This is a 5-2 kind of final game where they just have to pound the Blackhawks, put up the shots, get the goals, no messing around. And listen, he can end with 2 assists as he normally does and 5 shots on goal, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Dahlin to get 4+ shots on goal, plus 175 right now in FanDuel Sportsbook. 5+ shots is plus 375. So again, they are aware of the situation, it does seem, for sure. But Tom does see value on Dahlin coming off a down game there. Other one, as mentioned, was for Tage Thompson to score at plus 150. 2 other games in the NHL for tonight, Tom. Where else are you seeing value for tonight?
Really only one other spot, and that would be with the Devils. Shot prop for them. Nico Hischier, their captain, over 2.5 shots, minus 128. Jack Hughes is out of the lineup for the Devils. He's been out for a couple games. He's listed as week to week. This means Nico Hischier moves up from the second forward line to the first forward line. Just a role thing where it's a slight increase in offensive role, first power play time. Good matchup going up against the Canadiens. Same kind of situation. Canadiens and Blackhawks, bottom of the league when it comes to goals allowed, high danger chances, shot attempts allowed, et cetera, et cetera. So the surprisingly, I will say the Devils have been playing solid with Hughes out of the lineup, which doesn't benefit me because before the season started, I talked about Hughes to win the Hart at 18-1, and I'm thinking that's dead as the season goes on because he's missed so much time. But this is just an opportunity thing where you see an increase in role, but the prop really hasn't changed. He sure should have been at like 2.5 and maybe minus 110, maybe plus 102, plus 105 in his normal role. And he's being bumped up. And like, I don't see the juice as that much of a difference from minus 110 to minus 128 when he has a factually better role now. Yeah.
So Nico Hischier over 2.5 shots is minus 128 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. The implied odds of minus 128, 56.1%. So do keep that in mind. But as Tom is saying, that's not enough given the current role Hischier has. Now, one thing I did want to dig into is you mentioned the high danger chances, which to me implies that the value of a shot is higher than it would be in other situations. When you are seeing teams like the Blackhawks, like the Canadiens, who are letting up a lot of high danger shots, do you consider dabbling into more volatile markets like goal scorer markets where you're kind of benefiting more from those dangerous shots? Or do you still want to stick towards the shot volume and go with shot props, even when you got those more dangerous shot opportunities?
The answer is yes to both. It depends on who the player is. And it also depends on what role the player plays. For example, on the Avalanche, Val Nichushkin, he's out right now, but he sits at the front of the net on the power play. He's a big dude. He's like 6'5". He sits on the front of the net in the power play. So he is one of the league leaders in high danger chances created and high danger unblocked shots. So if we have a team that allows a lot of high danger chances, also takes a lot of penalties, he is like in the prime position to generate those chances because A, he plays on the power play and should be getting extra opportunity. And then B, is already good at it to begin with, which matches up with the team with what they're struggling. So it's situational. If we have a goal scorer, with him scoring a goal is probably better than attacking his shot prop because he's not shouldn't be the primary shot taker, but with McKinnon and Rantanen on that same line. But on a different circumstance, if we have a player that plays like on an off wing and is just a high volume shooter, he's going to have the opportunity based on his role. While goals are fluky, we can see a much higher floor from him in terms of overall shots just based on what he plays. So it's like highly circumstantial on a team by team, player by player basis.
Right. And I think a lot of that does depend on, your knowledge of hockey, the role these guys play and stuff like that, implementing that and not just, following where the data may say it is, taking in that watch the game, bro, consideration too. I think that does matter in situations like this.
Right.
So.
Shots are like total bases in baseball.
Yeah.
They should be consistent. Like an RBI, like Mike Trout could have 5 total bases and not have an RBI. So that's
probably happened a lot.
Right. Like you may like his RBI prop because it's at +1, I don't know, 15, 120, whatever it's going to be. But like his total base prop is at -120. And that's probably safer than the RBI just because he's going to get on base and get hits and not hit anyone in.
Right.
Right. Like that's
unless it's himself. Yeah.
Right. That's the best comparison. Like they're like total bases. They're relatively projectable rather than an RBI, which can be obviously dependent on team success overall.
Right. And like it's a different market. So you're considering team success with that kind of stuff. Yeah. So if you consider that and you think that it's a good market for Trout, then more power to you. I don't know what you're watching for the Angels to get that conclusion, but like, hey, hypothetically you could be there. So
right.
As always, it's a case by case basis for sure to identify the best market for betting these kinds of props based on the thesis you have going in. That is Tom Vecchio. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Tom_Vecchio1. Tom, appreciate the time as always. Good luck to you for tonight and enjoy all the fun sports we got on TV for tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Tom is on Twitter, as mentioned, at Tom_Vecchio1. I'm on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find me on Threads at Jim.Sonis, and you can follow FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get our show tomorrow with Dr. Ed Feng, the divisional round preview in your Covering the Spread podcast feed tomorrow afternoon. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.